Hi guys, welcome to my retouching tutorial on frequency separation. Now, frequency separation, when I first started, was quite unknown. I didn't learn about it until probably a couple of years ago when properly started using it in my imagery. It's a really powerful tool, whether you're working with food, products, people, because the power of frequency separation means that you can separate the color layer of your images from the textured layer of your images. Now, I'm going to show you what this photo used to look like before I used frequency separation and did the full retouch. I'm just going to delete this layer here. As you can see, that is a complete and utter mess. It took a while to get it right. As you can see, in the studio, it was very messy. We had very melty chocolate. We had elements on the biscuit that we didn't want, and all of these wire tools that needed to be removed. So I'm not going to go through the full edit with you, but I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how frequency separation can help you with these problems. So as you can see, we've now got like a super clean egg. The chocolate looks delicious. We've got a very clean biscuit, and we've started to build back in these details from the Rolo type project as well. Not to mention the background as well. Obviously, it was a really hard product piece to work with. There are so many different gradients. It's not solid color. There's different areas got to work with, and this foreground as well was a mess. So using a lot of healing brush tools and frequency separation, I was able to really bring this creation back to life and turn it into a piece of art. What I usually do for frequency separation is I have set up some actions, which makes the process of starting to separate those color layers and the texture layers super simple. So if you can see my actions tab here, if you don't have it on your Photoshop screen, you can go to Windows, Actions, and then it will pull it up. Maybe in this drop box you can drag your workspace however you want it. But as you can see here, I've got a frequency separation action, which is then broken down into color layer and textured layer. So I've just obviously removed what it looked like eventually. I'm going to duplicate my background anyway, always super important to keep that raw layer untouched just in case anything goes wrong. But I'm going to just show you how the actions work for now. So in my frequency separation box, I've got the color layer, click there, and then I'm just going to hit this play button. And what that's going to do is cycle through all the actions that I've built. And as you can see, it's created a layer where all of the texture has been removed. And now we literally are just working with those coloured elements. I'm then going to click back in my layers panel to that duplicated layer we worked with, back onto the background, copy to, and then go to my textured layer and click play again. And then that's going to cycle through. I'm just going to click yes because I want to name it texture. And it's created this sort of grayed out tab. Now, if I pull that to the top, you can start to see that the textured layer has pulled out all the details of the biscuit, the chocolate. You can sort of see the Prodigy logo there. And it doesn't look like much at the moment. However, if you go to your blending panel here where it says normal and drop that down, if you go to linear light, that pulls those two layers back together again. So you can see what is happening while these are together. If I move texture again, it shows just the color layer and that. So I'm just going to put these into a folder. And as you can see, if I unclick that, what it's done, it's slightly brought out the details. It is slightly lighter, but we can fix that later on. So yeah, it's just pulled those two elements together. So I'm going to show you how to build these actions to make your workflow super easy and make sure that you're getting everything you need in the right place for when you start to edit out all of these imperfections in frequency separation. So setting up your actions for frequency separation is pretty simple, but it will take you a few tries to do it without sort of thinking about it. So we're going to open our action panel, which, as I said, if you haven't got it on screen, is in Window and then Actions, and then you should see a tab on the right-hand side. We're going to create a new folder, which is the little folder tab at the bottom. Click on that, and I'm going to call it frequency separation. Sorry, I'm a bit slow with typing. And then we're going to click OK. Then we're going to set up 2 separate actions. So you don't want it all built on the same action because it might confuse it. So we've got our frequency separation folder, and then I'm just going to click on this sort of new, sort of what your layer tab would be. So the little box with the plus sign. Click on that, and action 1 is going to be called color layer. We're going to work on this first. You don't need to change anything else on that. You're just going to hit record. So what you're going to do is when you're recording, make sure you're on a duplicate of your background layer. It just makes it easier for the action to recognise what it is. We're going to drag that background layer to the plus symbol in the box, and then that's going to create a new layer. And then that on the action has told it to duplicate the current layer. We're then going to double click on the text of that layer and call it color layer, or just color, whatever you want to do. And then we're going to click enter on our keyboard. So that will save that action as set current layer. As you can see, if you click down on the box, it should say set current layer to name color layer. Then what we're going to do is we're going to create the sort of soft blur of that of the colours. So with that layer selected, try not to click anywhere else because it will record the action. Click on that colour layer, then we're going to go to filter, noise, and then down to median. And then it's already set here for me, but change your radius to 7 pixels and click OK. And then we're just going to click the stop button because that's our whole colour layer built. So as you can see from the previous part of the video, this is what the colour layer looks like. It's taken away all the texture and it's just kept those colour elements for you. So we're now going to record the second part, which is the texture. So with the background layer, not the colour layer, the background layer selected that you'd duplicated, we're then going to go back up to the action panel and re-click on the square with the plus in it. And we're going to name this texture layer. And click record. We're going to do the same thing again. We're going to drag that background layer to the new layer button, or the copy with the square with the plus in it, which has duplicated the current layer. We're then going to double click on that text, call this texture layer, click enter on your keyboard, which has set that. And then we're going to apply the image. So we're going to go to image, apply image, and all of this new text box will come up. You want to leave the source, the layer to merged, and then you want to select it. So it normally will come up with normal, but you want to scrub down to subtract. And then what you want to do is make sure that the scale is 2 and the offset is 30. So we're just going to click OK. And then once again, that action is completed. So now we're going to click the stop button. So now, if I drag the texture layer above the colour layer, we can see all that detail again. And as I said before, go up to your blending box where it says normal, and then go all the way down to linear light. And now you have the 2 separate texture layers that you can work on. Now, as I mentioned, you might end up doing an action wrong. You might have to do it a few times to get it right. But if anything did go wrong, you can always drag the action that's wrong down to the delete button. But I'm just going to delete those 2 layers that we've just created. Drag those down to the delete icon, and I'm going to re-click on background copy just to make sure that this works. I'm going to go up to my frequency separation folder on the colour layer first. I'm going to click play, and that should scrub through and create this this individual colour layer. And then I'm going to click back onto background copy, go to the texture layer action, click play again, and there it is, your textured layer. And then we are just going to do linear light, and there it is. That is how you set up your frequency separation action. So now we know a little bit more about what frequency separation is. We know how to set up an action for easier workflow to create your colour and textured layers. So now what do? We literally work layer by layer to start to remove anything that we want to get rid of. Obviously, before we do these sections, you can go through, you can use the spot healing tool, any patch tools to remove any imperfections that are sort of easier to get rid of that don't need that much detail. But I'm just going to quickly show you what I mean and how this works in terms of using this tool properly. So if I unclick the texture layer, I really want to remove, let's start with this. Actually, let's start with this little Rolo here. We've got this piece of chocolate, which if I'd have just used the patch tool or the spot healing tool, it might not have got rid of it in the best way possible. So we can click onto our colour layer and we can just start to use, let's have a look at the healing brush tool. So if you've watched a previous video, then you'll know that we can use the Alt button to select the sample area, and we can just paint this out and start to blend this in. I'm just going to pick up my my Wacom pen rather than use my mouse. It's going to work, and then we're just going to paint these details in. I'm just doing it for a very quick demonstration of what I mean. So we've just painted out that big chunk of chocolate that was sat on there. So if I now click back onto the texture layer, you can see that even though the colour area of that chocolate's gone, it's still left that really awful looking texture. So on the texture layer, it's really important to match texture with texture. Sometimes we don't have enough of a sample patch to create the best texture, so you will have to sample from different areas of the image. But I'm going to use the stamp tool, the clone stamp tool at 100%, because we're just working with texture. Now I'm going to just unclick the layers underneath it so you can see what I mean. I'm just going to use the square open bracket just to reduce the pen a little bit. And I'm going to click the sample with Alt. I'm just going to do that because that's probably the cleanest patch of chocolate we have. And I'm just going to paint away this detail. So now we're sort of halfway through that bit. I will click back onto that colour layer just to show you that that has now disappeared. And we can just sample our way through, making sure we re-click on that clean area and just start to paint away these details. As I said, if you feel more comfortable using the healing tools, by all means do it, but this really starts to allow you to pinpoint different parts of the detail and really clean up area without compromising any sort of texture and like colour merging. So we can start to clean it out that way. So I'm just going to put these 2 layers into a folder and click back onto that background copy, so you can see what I mean. It just starts to take away that element. I'm just going to unclick the texture layer again, and we can start to look at this sort of prodigy area. I'm going to, again, probably won't use the healing brush tool because that blends. I'm just going to use the remove tool and just see how this handles it. If I just paint out a bit of an area here, it starts to take away that sort of ridge. I'd do it in very small sections. And yeah, you could, just for the sake of it, I'm just going to go a bit crazy here. This isn't how I'd normally do it, but I'm just trying to demonstrate sort of how you can remove these large areas. And before, just to mention all of these sort of these wires, you can use the clone tool before you do frequency separation to remove the bigger chunks if you want to. You can do it in these layers if you really want to. But yeah, as you can see, that prodigy, just remove that layer. This prodigy logo has now sort of been removed. I would sample in different parts of the biscuit so it didn't look as weird or funny. But I'm just going to click back onto the texture layer, and as you can see, we can still see the outline of that Prodigy logo. I'm going to click back onto the texture layer, use my stamp tool again, S on the keyboard if you want the shortcut, using the closed brackets to make that tool bigger. And again, just paint out those details and try and match the texture to make a really clean cut sort of texture on top of all of that. So that's basically how you work into it. That's where I'm going to stop for now. I'll probably do a bigger video for a full edit using frequency separation. But for now, you have the tools to kind of set up your action and sort of understand how to work layer by layer. I suppose the best thing that you can do once you've finished cleaning up your images to get back to something as finished as this, if you want to work back into the texture and colour layer as a whole and then go back into sort of your normal retouching, what you would do is you click on the texture and colour layer and simply right click on them and go up to the merge layers, and that will create you the full image layer again with colour and texture included. So it will just become one layer. But yeah, have a go, see what you think. Let me know if you've got any questions or queries, and I'll try my best to answer them for you. But yeah, enjoy using frequency separation on your next image.